Okay, so on this one, they're wanting us to basically use the completing the square method. And this one's going to be a little harder because this number in the middle is an odd number. So that makes it more challenging. Let me show you. I'll bring it. In fact, I think I'll just bring it down here. So we have x squared plus, actually, let me scoot it over. So x squared plus 11x equals 12. So okay, so here's our wall of separation, right? So, and now, what do we need to do? We need to find the magic number, so to speak. Remember, this is like A, which is 1, and B, right? You know, the ABC stuff, right? So what we do is we grab the B, we take it over on the side, and we plug it in. We take B over 2 quantity squared. That's what that produces the magic number. It's the magic formula for completing the square. And so that'll be 11 over 2 squared. Now, if this was an even number, say it was like 12 over 2 squared, then I would just make that 6, and 6 squared would be 36, right? So if it's an even number, you can divide it by 2 quite easily. No decimals, no fractions, nice clean whole number, and then square it, no problem. But if it's an odd number, like 11, you can't divide it by 2 easily. I mean, you can divide it by 2, but it'll be either a decimal or a fraction. Does that make sense? I could make it a decimal. I could make it 5.5. Right? Half of $11 is $5.50, isn't it? Right? I could do that, but they said right here, answer as fractions or integers, meaning no decimals. Right? They're saying no decimals, please. You type in decimals, it'll go, it'll say invalid, no decimals. So they don't want me to go to decimals. So then what am I going to do? I just got to leave it as it is. And then square it. So what does this mean? This means 11 over 2 times 11 over 2, right? Squared means 2 of them multiplied, huh? So that means what? 11 times 11 on the top. You use your calculator if you need to. 121. 2 times 2 in the bottom, 4. See what I did there? I just left it as a fraction, squared the number on the top, squared the number on the bottom. 121 over 4. Okay, so what? What do I do with that? That means I come back here now and I add 121 over 4 and also subtract. See what I'm doing there? I bring it back and I add and subtract. That way I'm not really changing anything. Are you tracking with me? Nothing's really changing. I both added and subtracted the 121 over 4. So that's 0. No real change. It just looks different. I always call that plastic surgery. Remove the wrinkle, give it a new look. Same value. Okay. So why are we doing such a weird thing? Well, now these first three, will factor perfectly as the same thing twice, and everything else just stays where it's at. So I'm making sense so far. So just these first three will factor. Well, how do they factor? X is in the front. Remember this is multiply, add, multiply. X times X is X squared. What times what is 121 over 4? That's weird, right? You see what I'm saying here, guys and gals? What multiplies to be 121 over 4? That's so bizarre. Well, actually, no, I just did it right here. Right here, I just multiplied 2 things and got 121 over 4. It's right there. It's 11 over 2, isn't it? It's 11 over 2 times 11 over 2. We just did it. That's how we got the 121 over 4. You tracking with me? So both of those are positive. Everybody seeing that? 121 over 4. Now, if the middle term was negative, then I'd have to make both those negative. They would still multiply to be positive. 2 negatives multiply to be positive, so 2 positives. Everybody see that step? We found 2 numbers that multiply to be 121 over 4. Okay. Now, by the way, do they add to be 11? They do. This is half of 11. 11 over 2. That's half of 11 and half of 11. Half of 11 and half of 11 is a whole 11, isn't it? Or remember the decimal? It was 5.5, $5.50. Another $5.50 add to be what? $11. They do. They add to be the middle. They multiply to be that. So, okay, so they factor perfectly, which means we can now say it's squared, isn't it? It's the same thing twice. Everybody seeing that? It's the exact, they're identical twins. When you have the same thing twice, you just say squared, don't you? All right, well, that's the answer they want in the first part. Oh, actually, no, not quite. Not quite. Last thing I've got to add over, this is an advanced one. I've got to add this 121 over 4 to both sides. To get rid of that. And so then I just bring this down. Okay, now the question is, what happens? How do I add on the right side? I'm trying to add 12 plus 121 over 4, right? 12 plus 121 over 4. Have I lost you? Let me make sure. See, I'm trying to get it into this format. This is what they told me. Make it look like that. Put it in the form where you have, you know, parentheses squared on the left side, nothing else, and then just some number on the right side. So I'm trying to get that, right? I've got parentheses squared now on the left side, and I'm going to combine these together to get one thing on the right side. How do I do that? How do you add 12 and 121 over 4?
Make it 12 a fraction.
Awesome, exactly. Good. Let's, you guys remember that. Put this over 1, make it right. That's 12 over 1, still just 12, right? And then how do I add two fractions that have different denominators? Got to make the denominators the same, huh? Multiply top and bottom by 4, and then they'll both have the same denominator. This is a lot of fraction work, isn't it? It's good practice. So that's going to be what? 48 over 4 plus 121 over 4. See how I multiplied that top and that bottom by 4? And then we'll come on down, x plus 11 half squared. Add these up, 169 over 4. You add those together. That's part A. We finally finished part A. Let me write that answer up here. This is x plus 11 half squared equals 169 over 4. That's what they wanted us to do in part A, is to take this equation and change it, make it be something squared equals a number. And I did that. So again, how did I do it? I took the number in the middle, I put it over 2 squared. That's the magic formula we always use, right? B over 2 squared. And that was a fraction because 11 was an odd number. So it was a fraction. We had to multiply 2 of them, got 121 over 4. And then you add and subtract the 121 over 4. So you're not changing anything. Then the first 3 factor. And then we do the rest to get parentheses alone. Okay, now in part B, then they say, now use that, now solve it. Now solve. So how am I going to solve? How do I, notice they're saying, get x alone. X, then I want to be all alone. I want to be all alone. Get rid of this 2 power, get rid of this 11 half so I can be all alone. So you know what we do? It's like peeling an onion, start in the outer layer, start getting rid of stuff, right? Square root this side, square root that side. But when you put a roof on the house, up and down the ladder, plus and minus. Don't forget that plus and minus is really important. That's why I made up that dorky saying. Help you remember, whenever you put a root on both sides, roof on your house, you got to go up and down the ladder. If you put the roof on your house, you got to use the ladder up and down, plus and minus. Don't forget that. Okay. And then rooting cancels squaring. And so what we'll get then is x plus 11 halves. No more parentheses, no more 2 power. All that was canceled out by the root, equals plus or minus. And now, what do we do with the square root? Well, you can square root the number on the top. If you use your calculator, the square root of 169 is 13, and the square root of 4 is 2. It's plus or minus 13 over 2. No more root. No more root. Why? Because I did the root. I square rooted the 169, became 13, and I square rooted the 4, became 2. And the root vanished. Now that means plus or minus. Excuse me. Plus or minus means 2 separate equations, doesn't it? It means x plus 11 halves is 13 halves, or x plus 11 halves is minus 13 halves. 2 separate equations. Going to get x alone in both cases, so subtract 11 halves. Right here. So x equals, what's that going to be? 13 halves minus 11 halves is 2 halves, better known as 1. On the other side, subtract 11, oops, subtract 11 halves as well. And boom. X equals, that'll be what? Minus 24 halves, right? Because that minus 13 and minus 11, they add up. Like, you know, if you lose 13 pounds and lose 11 pounds, you lost 24 pounds. Divided by 2 is 12. And there's our 2 answers, 1 and minus 12. Bring that up here and write it in. 1, we're going to choose color, maybe. So 1, minus, so they want you to put them in separated by commas. You can put them either order, the minus 12 first and the 1. Either way, those are our 2 answers. And so there we go.